And we are live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the HackTheBox Twitch channel, or if you're watching this after the fact, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Ramsbey, and for this stream, I have broke out the black hoodie. For those of you who hung out with me on Twitch last night, do appreciate you being there. For those of you on YouTube, you don't get to see that one. We spent a lot of time kind of enumerating and digging through information, but ultimately I got completely stuck on something. Even though I found like the exact exploit I needed to use, it wasn't working properly. And I was just tired, and I ended up legit just rage quitting and be like, I'm done. I'm not coming back to this machine. But here's the thing, guys. I don't know how many times I have said about a machine or a challenge, I'm not going back to that. I remember going all the way back to the OSCP when I was just going through the lab stuff. I quit studying for the OSCP like 50 times, and I ended up passing it on my first attempt when I actually took the exam. So I always say I quit. I never actually quit. I'm like a boomerang, because when I can't figure something out, it drives me crazy. Like, I have to dig in and understand, like, why does it work this way? And so I've spent some time researching the machine that I was stuck on. Now, when I say stuck, what I mean by that is the machine that we were doing is driver on HackTheBox. So kind of spoiler alert, but this really is part 2 if you're watching it on YouTube. There's 2 ways to solve this machine. The intended path is a Rico or Ryko, I don't know how to say that, but it's a printer, and I'll actually show that to you when I share my screen, how I discovered that information. And there's a local privilege escalation in that printer. Now, it's actually in Metasploit, and I had everything ready. We even changed our payloads out thinking that was the issue on the stream last night. Let's see, I went from my VM to the pwn box thinking it was my VM that was broken. Then we rebooted the target machine entirely. It was still broken. And then I just like got mad and was like, I'm done. I'm not coming back to this. But here I am the next night, and I did figure out why it wasn't working. And actually through the process, I learned something new about evil WinRM and about Windows processes. And so I want to share with you what I learned, and I want to officially solve this box. So I will just say, unlike some of my other streams, I did actually go through these steps ahead of time offline. The thing about live streaming, as much as I love it, it's really difficult to think through complex problems and try to learn something new when you're live streaming, because you are trying to talk, you're trying to pay attention to the chat, and people are watching you. Like, I don't know if you guys have this experience. Maybe you're in like a Teams call or a Slack call, and someone asks you to share your screen to show them how to do something. And I swear, like, when I'm in that moment, like whenever I'm like debriefing with a client or explaining something and I'm sharing my screen, I swear I forget the most basic of command syntax, and I miss the most obvious of things. So offline, I did a lot more research on this box, on the attack method, just so I could understand it. And now I want to walk you through it to hopefully help you understand it as well. But I know for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you did not see my stream from last night, so I will catch you up on a little bit of what you missed, but just know I'm going to go through it much faster than I went through it last night. So if you're working through this machine live and you're thinking to yourself, yo, how did Tyler know to do this step and this step and this step? Just to be very clear, I did not figure it out this quickly yesterday. Now, I did get to the exact exploit and everything yesterday, but it took more time. So as I go through this, although it looks rather quick, I just want you to know I'm not going through that part of it live. This is a little more prepared than most of my streams are. And once we solve this, maybe we'll just dive into another machine. So without any further ado, let me share my screen, and I will just ask those of you on Twitch, let me know if everything sounds good. We are on the pwn box today. The pwn box is just like the cloud VM through HackTheBox. The reason for the pwn box is I do think there's something a little bit buggy about my Kali VM, and my Kali VM is actually in the process of updating and upgrading, and it gave me like 20 minutes of waiting, and I didn't want to just stare at my computer for 20 minutes. So I was like, hey, let's just start, and I'll use the pwn box as we get started. So I have launched the driver machine, although I don't have the IP. Let me see. Let me grab the IP real quick. Switch back over to our pwn box, and let's go ahead and throw this in Etsy hosts. All good. Okay, cool. I'm glad sound, that's the same thing. Audio and video are good. We'll do sudo nano Etsy host. I'm curious, for those of you on Twitch, do you ever use the pwn box? I actually think it's pretty nice. Like it works pretty smooth. Both this and the attack box on Try Hack Me both have gotten really really well done, really good. So kudos to both HackTheBox and the Try Hack Me team for both of these VMs. I normally use my own VM, but this is a nice thing to be able to use when I want to. So driver.hackthebox. The first thing we're going to do is evil WinRM into it. These are things that you would have seen on the first video if you're following on YouTube. So I covered this in part 1, so I won't explain it here. So we'll evil WinRM -u, our user is Tony, -p is little Tony is the password, -i is our IP, driver.hackthebox. Okay, so we are here. This is where we got our user flag and everything. And what we did, I do want to show you some of my notes. So when we got our initial access, if you guys remember, we found this weird folder in the temp directory, which is this disk 1 and miscellaneous, and we knew like, hey, it has something to do with printer drivers. Now, what we ended up doing was running WinPs in the last stream, but you're not going to see me run WinPs if you're watching on YouTube, because I'm not posting that stream, because a lot of it was just troubleshooting, which might be helpful, but I don't want 2 hours of troubleshooting on YouTube. So that's what you miss out when you don't watch me on Twitch. But as we were running WinPs, I said, hey, this is an interesting file. For those who might be new to this, PS history is actually PowerShell history. So we saw, hey, this file is available, and we can see the previous commands ran by this Tony user. So this stood out to me right away when we were running WinPs. And as you can see, I copied it into my notes. Not human, send a friend request. All right, not human. If you're on Twitch, I'll accept that friend request in a little bit. So we have that, and we can go ahead and type that just so I can show it to you guys. And here's what I noticed right away. We saw, hey, we have this add printer name Rico, and we found this, and we went ahead and copied that, and we did some just basic enumeration of that, and you're able to find the exploit quite quickly. Default sec, what are we doing? We are finishing the driver box on HackTheBox. And we'll actually finish this relatively quick, because unlike normal, I've gone through this ahead of time because I had some issues with it initially. So you can see this is actually in Metasploit. Now here is where everything kind of fell apart on stream, where I was really stuck on this part. And I'm going to show you what I did initially, and then I'll show you how I ended up fixing it. But I'll show you what happens if you just do this on its own, and how it should work, at least in my mind, till I learned what I now know. So let's go ahead and open a new tab, and we'll get Metasploit running here. And we also need to go ahead and create a payload for MSF Venom. Whoops, I don't need to do that again. Throws me off when I'm using Parrot as opposed to Kali. Let's go ahead and look at our cheat sheet, because like I said, I always forget the syntax for payloads. I had it memorized when I was doing the OSCP, because I was doing it every single day as I was studying and learning things. And we'll just use this one, but I am going to change it to x64. Come on, can we copy you? Let's try that again. There we go. Copy that. We can minimize that. Open up our handy dandy notepad here, type that in just so we get the syntax right, and we will drop RIP in here. In our port, as real hackers in black hoodies would do, we're going to use port 1337, and I like to name my shell based on the port that it's using. And let me go ahead and add x64. That all looks good to me. We'll create that payload. While that does that, let's use exploit multi-handler. So we're ready to catch that payload. Option, set L host 10.10.14.10. Set L port to 1337. Set payload to this right here, so we catch it properly. Options. That all looks good to me. We'll go ahead and run it. This should be done. Beautiful. Now we'll do, well, we don't even do sudo, I don't think. We'll do python 3.im HTTP server. We'll host it on port 8080. And then from our victim machine, we'll wget 10.10.14.10 8080 reverse 1337.exe out file. We'll just call it reverse.exe. That all should work. Okay. So I did this on stream None of that's new. That's all really basic stuff that we just did right there. But now what we want to do is launch this binary file, and if all works well, we'll be able to catch it in Metasploit. Everything here worked last night as well. And I was like, hey, I'm doing really good. I discovered the user on my own, and I was like, I found the privilege escalation path on my own. I am a real hacker now, but things do fall apart. All right, we got our interpreter session. Beautiful. And so we'll go ahead and background this. And if we search for Rico, we can find the privilege escalation right there. Rico driver privesc. And we'll say use one. Just want to clear this out a little bit. And if we look at our options, the first thing we want to do is set our payload so it matches this right here. Should work just fine. And we'll set our L host to 10.10.14.10, set our L port. Actually, we'll just leave our L port at 4444. That's totally fine. And if we look at our sessions, we can see we have our session here. So we'll set session to our session 1. Clear again. Look at our options. We have our session set. We have our L host set, our L port set. We have our payload set. And now if we go ahead and click run, here is where the insanity kicks in, right? And this is what we were running into last night. For those of you who are on Twitch, you're like, hey, Tyler, just be patient, just wait. And then we just like stared at it like, hey, are you going to do something? And it doesn't. It just gets stuck here. And it was driving me crazy. Now, when you look at walkthroughs, so like if you just go and look up like driver HackTheBox walkthrough, the vast majority of walkthroughs just use print nightmare because print nightmare works and it's a good way to get NT system authority. But I didn't want to do that because like clearly the intended path is the Rico driver privesc. And the reason I say clearly that's the intended path is when you look at the PowerShell history. I didn't even grab a screenshot of that, but the PowerShell history that I pulled up just a little bit ago shows them installing a Rico printer with the exact firmware that is vulnerable to privilege escalation. So this is clearly the intended path. So I was like, I could just print nightmare and be done with it, but my curiosity gets the best of me. And I'm like, there has to be a reason this is not working. Now, it did some digging. I want to give a shout out to 0xdf, I think is his name. He's actually a HackTheBox staff member, does a really good written walkthroughs. He's kind of like the writing version of IPSec. And he explained a little bit about sessions, but not too much into it, but at least gave me a hint like, hey, here's what I'm missing. And then I want to give a shout out to my friend CaliMax. He and I talked about this. And then a shout out to my friend Amoeba Man, who is on the Try Hack Me side, created all the AD networks on there. And it's like, yo, dude, explain this to me a little bit. Like I want to understand this better, what's going on. And we spent a little bit of time like troubleshooting this. We actually fully rooted the machine. Then we tested it out by opening like RDP on the machine. Like we turned this into our own lab to understand what was going on. And here is what I discovered. Let me go ahead and get out of this. We'll delete the printer. And here is the point last night where I rage quit and said, I'm done. If we look at our sessions again, we can see we have session 1. So let's go / sessions. I think stands for interact, and want to interact with session 1. Okay. And now if we go ahead and look at our processes, right? Windows runs processes. There's a few things I want to draw your attention to. We have, of course, our names over here, but we have this thing called a session. A few of these sessions, you'll notice, have a 0. And other sessions have a 1. And this is key, and this is what I was missing when I was working through this. I want you to look for reverse.exe, which is right here. This right here is the MSF Venom payload that we created. So this is our shell. I want you to notice our shell is running with the context of session 0. We need to migrate to a different session with a session of 1, and then the exploit works. That's what a lot of the walkthroughs at least do it this way. That's what they say, but they don't explain why. So then I was like, what does that even mean? And I'll show you guys what I discovered. I just did like Windows session 0. And we'll just glance through this, but this is a little bit of my research as I was understanding this. Basically, my TLDR is session 0 essentially runs almost like a sandbox. It runs in isolation and it's not interactive. Session 1 is interactive, which means fully interactive. Session 0 is not interactive. I kind of think of it like on a Linux machine. If you get like a netcat shell, but it's not fully functioning, and you need to upgrade your shell with like Python in order to do some commands or connect to a database. Similar, at least in my mind. So when you connect to a Windows machine with Evo WinRM in particular, it seems to give you session 0, which you can still do a lot of things on it, but some things like this privilege escalation with drivers does not work. You can see this in Windows XP, Windows Server, blah, blah. All services run the same session as the first user logs into the console. This session is called session 0. So this is how it used to be. Running services and user applications together in session 0 poses a security risk because services run at elevated privilege and therefore are targets for malicious agents, us, who are looking for a means to elevate their own privilege level. The Microsoft Windows Vista OS mitigates this security risk by isolating services in session 0 and making session 0 non-interactive. This is the key to understanding between session 0 and session 1, and this is why when we run this exploit on a session 0 shell, it is not going to work for us. We are essentially in a sandbox. Now, it's going to give a little more information on why that is, but that's like the TLDR. Would encourage you to check this out for yourself, but kind of a note that I took down, I have never encountered this on a machine up to this point, and I've done a bunch of CTFs, a bunch of different machines. I, of course, did the OSCP, passed the OSCP. I'm a pen tester now, but I do web apps. But just saying, this is not something I have come across regularly. So my frustration from last night with this machine changed to gratitude because I learned something through it about these different sessions. And when you get onto a machine, kind of the note to self is if the exploit is not working, do PS and see, like, am I in a session 0 with my shell? And if you are in a session 0, that might be the issue. So our goal is we are in session 0, wherever that is, this reverse XC right here, we're in session 0. What we need to do is migrate to a different process that is an interactive process. So we can pick one that we have access to. We could do OneDrive. I'm going to try explorer.exe. I think that would work as well. And if my memory serves me correct, I believe the syntax is just migrate -n as the name, and we'll try explorer.exe. Okay, so now that we migrated successfully, we are in a session that is interactive. Now, if we go ahead and background this task, and we're back here, so if we look at our options, everything still should be good, but now we are doing this from this new, well, not really a new session, but the new process that we migrated to. And now that our session is a 1 or interactive, this should work. At least I hope it works. Otherwise, I might rage quit on stream again, but this should work. So we have everything set up. Let's go ahead and try to do a run. There we go. You can already see it's working. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is what I was missing, was that very small detail around sessions. But when you migrate from a session 0 to a session 1 to an interactive session, then the intended path for this machine works and you get NT authority system. So for those of you who were with me on stream last night and was just as confused as I am, I really hope you learned something through that process, and hopefully my personal pain pays off for you, and we all learned this together. Now, I love HackTheBox ratings, how this is somehow an easy machine. That initial access is abusing an SFC file in an SMB share. Now, I got that right away, but I wouldn't call that easy. And then even privilege escalation, the intended way, you have to know this information. You have to migrate to a different process with an interactive session. Then you have to run the exploit. Yo, HackTheBox, if this is easy, then I'm like worse than a script kiddie, right? So for those of you who might be new to HackTheBox, don't let their ratings give you imposter syndrome. They're quite difficult. But here we go. We are NT authority system, so we can just drop into a shell if we want, and CD users, CD administrator, CD desktop, I'm guessing. I actually haven't got this flag yet. Type root.txt. And there we go. We have the final flag. We successfully rooted the machine. And what we were stuck on last night was that weird thing with session. So let's go ahead and grab this just so we can be done with this machine. But truly, who I don't know who creator was, but kudos to the creator, because although I got frustrated, I learned some really cool things through this machine. So we'll go ahead and submit our final flag. And wait for it. There we go. We have pwned the machine. So share it with all my friends. You guys are my friends, so I'm sharing this with you that driver has been pwned. We'll hit OK. And for the flag difficulty rating, I'm going to call it a bit hard. And the only reason I'm saying that is what I just showed you wasn't necessarily difficult. I just haven't seen it a whole lot. And although we identified the privilege escalation right away, you guys could see I was really stuck because I was like, what the heck is going on? So I'm going to call it a bit hard because of that. Submit the rating for it. And that machine has been pwned. I am curious if we look at the reviews for this machine. I want to just see what others have said. Just completed incredibly fun. I watched IPSEC's video while doing it and learned so much from it. So they watch IPSEC. Easy RCE, very privileged escalation. Here's the confusing part about this. They give him 2 stars that y'all doing a great job. And here's someone complaining about the SCF file. I didn't think that was that bad. But now I just want to show you guys, if we go to, I'm actually going to do it inside of my VM here. Oh, here we go. Here's what I'm trying to get to. If we look at driver HackTheBox walkthrough, let's just glance at a few of these and see how they did this. Let's see how many did it the proper way and how many did it via print nightmare. Because I think a lot of people took the easy way out and did print nightmare. Let's find out. Can I close this? Okay. I uploaded an RMPs. There were no eye-catching vulnerabilities, blah, blah. So I Googled about it. And yep, they did print nightmare. So print nightmare works, but not the intended path. Because if you do print nightmare, you do get NT system, but you don't learn that technique I just told you guys about. That's why the easy path isn't always the best path. If you're not learning something new, then what's the point? Once again, second walkthrough, print nightmare. So what I mean, guys, a lot of people did not do this RICO or RICO exploit. Let's see this one. Privilege escalation. Others saying how to upload WinPs. Print nightmare. All right. Top 3 walkthroughs on Google all are print nightmare. So they don't actually show this intended path that we just did. So really hope you guys learned something through this. For those of you on Twitch, we'll hang around. Maybe we'll jump into another machine. But for those of you on YouTube, just so these videos can go together nicely, I'm going to stop this for YouTube. And then Twitch, hang around though. I'm not disconnecting with you guys on Twitch. And for those of you guys on YouTube, I hope you learned something from this. I know this is shorter than usual, a little bit different style than usual since I wasn't working through it live. But I hope you learned from some of my pain and some of my mistakes. So YouTube guys, thank you for being here, and I will catch you guys in the next one.